Hello, everyone. Today, we dive into a story called I'll Change the Ending Through Home Education. Before we start, please like and subscribe to support the channel. Now, enjoy the story. Our tale begins as Miss Agnes's recommendation is intensely scrutinized by a stern head butler. She couldn't blame his suspicion, for she held a grave secret. She was from the future, where his master would end her life 14 years later. Agnes May, third daughter of a declining house, had lived a life shadowed by misfortune. Her family was ruined by fraud, and every chance at marriage simply vanished. Thus, she chose the path of a tutor from a very young age. The profession suited her well, and she found joy in her work. Her final students were the children of 𝒂𝒂. The 𝒂𝒂 himself was a hopeless case, but she thought she only needed to endure for 5 years. But 3 years later, that useless 𝒂𝒂 was branded a traitor, and his house fell to ruin. Devoted to his children, Agnes sacrificed herself for their escape. The raid's leader was Duke Battenberg, the 𝒂𝒂's own uncle. To his own blood, the Duke showed not an ounce of mercy. In her final moments, Agnes cursed her fate, dying for the children of a man who failed to protect them. But her deep affection for those children remained her one truth. Her last regret was failing to correct the 𝒂𝒂's character, and that became her final memory. The next thing she knew, she awoke 14 years in the past, at the age of 22. Here, 𝒂𝒂 is just 7, in the care of his future killer, Duke Battenberg. She could run, but not abandon the children's fate. This was her one chance to rewrite their destiny. It was an unbelievable twist of fate, and a golden opportunity. For Duke Battenberg was seeking a tutor. Timothy Reynolds, now 7, had just lost his parents and was now the Duke's official ward. And at this very moment, Agnes was in the middle of her interview. She spoke of her time at the 𝑺𝒑𝒃𝒍𝒆 estate, her last position. In her first life, she'd have stayed 1 more year. Now, she had to leave the 𝑵𝒂𝒃 children early. The head servant then voiced his concerns. He asked if Agnes truly wanted to tutor young Timothy, despite the dark rumors she hadn't heard. Her ignorance only deepened the butler's worry. He revealed a skilled tutor had fled in less than a month, thanks to Timothy's terrible behavior. That is why they now needed a live-in tutor, desperate to quell any more awful rumors. But despite his warnings, Agnes was strangely determined, claiming she wanted the challenge. Faced with her unwavering resolve, the head servant finally gave in. As he rose, he led Agnes to her room, introducing himself as Carlo. He explained her new duties, informing her that the Duke was currently away from the estate. Ethan Henry Battenberg, the ruthless Duke destined to be her killer. She vowed that future would never come to pass. Suddenly, a shrill scream echoed from a nearby room. It was Timothy, terrorizing a maid with a bug. Agnes instantly stepped in, ignoring Carlo's warning. But her introduction was met with a vile insult, testing her patience at once. She ordered him to apologize to the maid. He refused, his arrogant gaze showing he saw them as beneath him. His stubborn defiance only fueled her resolve to correct his character. Agnes understood the root of his arrogance. She realized this is how he becomes a failure. Still, his actions demanded consequences. She knew he tormented others just to feel a sense of power. So what did she do? She grabbed the centipede and thrust it in his face, watching disgust twist his features. A taste of his own medicine. Enraged, Timothy kicked out, squashed the bug, and hurled his shoe. Seizing the moment, Agnes used the bug-stained shoe to scare Timothy away. The boy fled in terror. The chase finally ended with Timothy cornered on the servant's rooftop. He refused to go near the crushed bug, nor would he listen to a word she said. She then saw the roof cracking under his frantic stomps. She urged him to calm down, but her orders only fueled his defiance. Timothy's frustration was palpable, his anger simmering just beneath the surface. But this rage couldn't be for Agnes. They had just met. As his tantrum peaked, the boy suddenly lost his balance. Agnes lunged to catch him, but ended up taking the fall herself, right into a pile of smelly hay. Overwhelmed, she sighed. Timothy was by far the most difficult child she had ever tutored. He clearly had deep-seated issues. She felt pathetic for losing her cool with a troubled boy. Just then, a chillingly familiar voice cut through the air. It was the young Duke Battenberg. The sight of him turned her blood to ice. And why wouldn't it? She was staring at the very man who had once taken her life. His first words were unbelievably callous. If she didn't know the monster he'd become, she might even admit he was breathtakingly handsome. Agnes was floored by his complete lack of concern for someone who had just fallen. But her deep-seated contempt for him gave her strength, eclipsing any fear. She boldly lectured him on his conduct before a lady in distress. Ethan remained completely unmoved. He saw no reason to offer her any aid, but Agnes pressed on, insisting that basic decency was not optional. Her words were wasted. He simply dismissed her and demanded to know who she was. But she could play that game too. Ignoring his question, she continued her lesson on all the right things a guardian should do, like caring for a newly orphaned nephew. She promised him if he would only listen, he would not regret it. Soon, Carlo and Timothy rushed over, frantic about Agnes, but the Duke's presence made them snap to attention. Seeing how Timothy flinched before his uncle, it was clear why their relationship was so broken. She brazenly seized the Duke's hand, demanding they introduce themselves properly. Carlo panicked, asking if he should fire her. The Duke refused, curious to see how long she'd last after making such a bold claim. The moment he was gone, Agnes collapsed. For a second, she truly believed she was about to die all over again. Timothy hurried to her side, his voice filled with genuine worry. At least she was getting through to him. Later that evening, Agnes reviewed the day's events. She had finally confronted the two people responsible for her death, a spoiled child and his heartless uncle. Yet, she felt certain the boy could still be saved. A few days later, her morning began with Timothy's yelling about the drawing she'd left on his sleeping face. A fair payback, she thought, for the frogs he had released in her bedroom. She seized the chance, turning his own logic against him in her lecture. It was a flawless strategy. He grew quiet, a blush of embarrassment creeping onto his face as he realized his own flaws. Agnes continued to guide his emotions, and before he knew it, the boy was starting to warm up to her. Teasing was her best tool for getting him to study. And somewhere along the way, she realized she had grown incredibly fond of him. She'd given him a break from his studies, which gave her about an hour, and she knew just what she had to do. It had been 10 days since her arrival, and she'd learned much about the young lord. He wasn't an easy child to handle, she admitted, but she was sure he would eventually open his heart. Now, she was bothering a servant named Johann, the Duke's personal attendant. Timothy, after all, wasn't her only student. She had two of them, and the other was Duke Ethan himself. But Johann was a stone wall, refusing her entry. Her persistence was clearly wearing on his last nerve. Suddenly, Ethan's voice ordered him to let her in. Johann was left utterly baffled by the Duke's decision. There was another hard truth Agnes had learned in these 10 days. Ethan felt nothing for Timothy. Once inside, she presented a paper bearing Timothy's writing. She urged the Duke to show his nephew some attention, but he just passed the duty to Carlo. When it came to emotional awareness, the Duke was even worse than the child. Cold, distant, and immature. Ethan claimed he was doing all he could for the boy, and if it wasn't enough, he coldly suggested giving Timothy up for adoption. Hearing that, she knew he was a lost cause. She tried to reason with him, to make him see his duty as a guardian, but her words wouldn't sink in. Still, she refused to give up. From the side, Johann was captivated by his master's flawless appearance, despite his icy heart. Annoyed, the Duke demanded to know why he was staring. Johann nervously apologized, admitting his curiosity about the conversation between the Duke and the mysterious new tutor. What truly sparked his interest was her sheer audacity in confronting the Duke. Johann eagerly recounts Agnes's miracles, explaining how she transformed the young master. He adds that the entire staff is in awe of her. Realizing he'd spoken too much, he promptly falls silent. Yet, the Duke pressed him to continue, demanding every detail as they walked to the palace. Perhaps a fondness was taking root inside him, an emotion he had yet to recognize. That night, Agnes lies on the floor, drained from managing both Timothy and Ethan. At least the boy, she thought, seemed manageable. But the Duke was a different problem. His cold indifference left her at a complete loss. She knew her methods were becoming more abrasive, which went against her personal code as a tutor. Her time was short, just 3 years until Timothy turned 10, when her duties would officially end. But the boy first needed a guardian who cared. That would have to be her true focus. The next day, Timothy is baffled. Why was Agnes suggesting a tea party instead of lessons? She proposes a wager. Her win means more play, his means they study. Timothy is instantly suspicious. He knows she's planning something, but she masterfully plays on his emotions to persuade him. The next morning, their banter about pranks is cut short when Agnes's words suddenly change the air. He had tied her to the bed as a prank, and its cleverness made her wonder who taught him. Of course, such a skill taught to a young boy could only have come from his late mother. She steers past the painful subject, reminding him he lost their bet. He must now sit quietly for tea. A defeated Timothy grudgingly takes his seat. Just as Agnes believes she's finally made significant progress, a world away from the boy she first met, he says something so cruel it shatters all her hopes in an instant. Later, Timothy creeps through the hall to play a prank on Agnes in her sleep. He plans to stain her clothes with dye, yet he considers buying her a new outfit if she has nothing left to wear. He does care for her after all, but then he overhears hushed voices. It was the maids, pitying Agnes for having to handle a troublesome brat for money. Hearing their poison, he storms to her room and hurls the dye, almost blinding her. Bewildered, she cautiously confronts him. Through tears, Timothy declares she's just like all the other adults. She was only there for the high pay, for enduring a difficult child. Such cruelty. Who told him that? She had said those words, but only to conceal her true purpose. He weeps, knowing he's not wrong. Everyone was only acting for their own gain, never truly caring about him. He yells for her to leave, but his heart begs her to stay. If he truly wanted her gone, he wouldn't be clinging to her so tightly. Agnes pulls him into a hug, explaining she would have left long ago if she didn't want to care for him. She confesses how attached she's become. Hearing this, Timothy finally embraces her back. But the chemical dye Timothy threw is dangerously potent. Utterly exhausted, she feels herself about to faint. Of all times, it had to be now, when he finally opened his heart. As her vision fades, she glimpses Ethan's silhouette, confusing her before she falls. Luckily, the Duke is there to catch her. Agnes dreams of people telling her to stop caring for her parents, but for her, it was never that simple. Unlike her sisters and their excuses, she was the only one willing to shoulder the burden. She also remembers the old 𝑵𝒂𝒂𝒂 words about neglecting children. That's why Ethan's tone felt so familiar. She'd heard these exact words before, from Timothy's mouth in her past life. Regaining consciousness, she is lost. Her confusion only deepens when she hears the Duke's voice. He explains her sight is safe and the rashes will heal. In shock, she asks why he's there. He states that Timothy's actions are his responsibility. He also tells her she has every right to resign after this incident. But she refuses to budge, making Ethan wonder why she pushes herself so far. No one would believe her reasons. The truth would sound like pure fantasy. As she's lost in thought, Ethan suddenly grabs her chin, inspecting her wounds. Satisfied that she's fine, he tells her to rest well before taking his leave, leaving her utterly dumbfounded. Elsewhere, Duke Ethan's blade meets his brothers, Crown Prince Tristan of the Mayor Empire. But Ethan's mind is clearly adrift, a detail Tristan doesn't miss. The moment his focus returns, he disarms Tristan. His brother tells him to retrieve the fallen sword. Ethan coldly offers to feign weakness if Tristan insists. Tristan refuses, saying it would ruin their practice. Soon, a girl rushes in Dahlia Martinez, their cousin. She gushes about seeing Ethan more often. Her infatuation for him is painfully obvious. But Ethan's cold reply instantly chills the air, creating a stiff silence. Tristan mercifully ends the awkward scene, saying they have matters to discuss, leaving Dahlia crushed. In the halls, Tristan defends Dahlia's merits, but Ethan remains completely uninterested in her. He has no desire for an heir. His only wish is to grow old and fade away alone. When Tristan asks of his nephew, Ethan curtly replies that the boy is fine. Tristan jests Dahlia would be a great mother to Timothy, but Ethan's expression darkens. He once considered marriage, but everything changed because of his sister, 𝒑𝒊𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂. She was his radiant idol who taught him the sword. Together, they joined the royal guard. He finds it hard to admit her brilliance now. That changed the day she met Maris Reynolds. She fell in love, married, and vanished, only to reappear 8 years later inside a coffin. That was the first time he saw Timothy. He took the boy not from pity, but to protect his birthright. He knows Greta's death was no accident. He will unmask the culprit who took her from him. While the Duke is lost in these dark memories, Agnes bursts in. Since she must rest, she worries that poor Timothy will be left all alone. She begs Ethan to at least dine with Timothy, but the stubborn Duke sees it as a trivial plea. So she proposes a deal instead. When she insists, he coldly tells her to get out and leave. But her silver tongue worked its magic. Behind the door, Agnes celebrates her small victory. She actually swayed him. Carlo soon appears, warning her not to push herself too hard. Since her arrival, Timothy has transformed, but it's been taxing on her. Carlo leads her away. Agnes longs to see Timothy before her 5-day break, but Carlo firmly forbids it. At least her preparations are complete. Still, it pains her that she hasn't seen Timothy. This break is also a chance to investigate. She recalls her awkward return home after regressing. Her last memory had been from 14 years into the bleak future. Now she's back, 14 years in the past. She'd forgotten how to be 22, buried by work. She sacrificed everything for her parents, yet always felt a painful distance between them. When they died, a crushing weight lifted, which was a relief. Now, facing her mother feels impossible. Her kind mother worries about the household that would harm a tutor, but Agnes soothes her fears. Agnes changes the topic, asking her sisters about rumors of Duke Battenberg's possible marriage. Her mother completely misunderstands, leaving Agnes baffled by her sudden, hopeful expression. Agnes forgot. In her past life, her mother was always like this, a hopeless romantic. She was always just waiting for the day Agnes would finally marry. It's no surprise she's now excited, thinking her daughter is interested in the Duke himself. She even urges Agnes to pursue him since he's single. Her mother adds his parents died young. And worse, he lost his beloved sister not long after that terrible tragedy. Her mother adds that the Duke has never dated, and his only friend is the Crown Prince. This makes Agnes wonder, did he die alone in her past life too? This is a terrible sign. How can Timothy have a stable home if Ethan remains this cold? But it fits his isolated nature. Her mother teases that the reason she ignored men is because her type is the stoic Duke, but she scoffs at the thought. With so many women chasing him, it could never be her. Her mother's apology hangs in the air, a quiet regret for the harsh life her daughter endured. But Agnes brushes it aside, her focus absolute. There's no room for her own sorrows now. Timothy's future is all that matters. Meanwhile, anxiety gnaws at the young lord during dinner. He's dining with his cold uncle, just as Agnes predicted. He'd wished she wouldn't go, but his childish pride, his shame over his tears, kept him from even saying goodbye. A bitter regret now fills him. For the final words he never got to say, he's lost, adrift in the suffocating silence. This dinner with his uncle is pure torture. The tension snaps. A fork clatters to the floor, shattering the heavy silence. A cold glare, then a cutting remark follows. The Duke rises, abandoning the table. Agnes feels the same urge, a desperate need to escape this suffocating house. A talk with her father confirmed her fears. He too just wants to marry her off. In her past life, the pressure was too great. She never had a moment to think. But this time is different. She can't shake the feeling that something is terribly wrong. As she prepares to depart, Carlo appears, his urgent expression telling her everything. Her own plans must wait. With Carlo's arrival, her destination is set. She must return to the 𝒏𝒂𝒂 estate. In the carriage, Carlo explains urgently. The dinner was a disaster. Afterwards, Timothy only grew more agitated, desperately calling for her. But one detail snags her attention. The Duke's parting words. It echoed her own advice. The memory sparks a flash of fury. The Duke likely used her words as an excuse to escape. Arriving back at the 𝒏𝒂𝒂 mansion, an enraged Timothy immediately confronts her. What did you say to him? He accuses her of pouring salt in the wound of his uncle's perceived hatred. Agnes calmly denies it all. She explains that his assumption is baseless. No one truly knows the Duke's heart, which is why they must learn to understand one another. Timothy issues a harsh warning. Stay out of it. He's already accepted their mutual hatred as fate. But Agnes will not allow it. Preventing this very tragedy is the reason she returned. She reassures him firmly. A disaster like tonight's dinner will never be repeated. But first, he must control his temper. To her surprise, he immediately complies. A flicker of delight crosses her face. But her victory is short-lived. Soon, she's carrying a struggling Timothy, cursing her own complacency. He's already building his walls back up against her. She carries him toward his bedroom. The boy hasn't been sleeping properly at all. After settling him down, a bitter thought surfaces. How can she care for a boy who played a part in her own demise? Right now, Timothy is just a boy desperate to be a man. He doesn't see that without maturity, he'll never earn true respect. His future self wasn't much different. He was forced into adulthood at 15, after fathering twins and being exiled from his family's lands. And then it hits her. For those twins to exist, Timothy must still marry his original fiancé. This mission is growing more complicated by the second. Later, she outlines her daunting tasks. First, mend the rift between Timothy and the Duke. But how? Second, find him companions, an impossible task. Third, locate his fiancé, whose face she can't even remember. And finally, avert the coming rebellion. A problem so vast, she doesn't know where to start. No, this won't be easy at all. The next day, she briefly considers telling the Duke everything. Thankfully, sanity prevails. He would just have her thrown out as a lunatic. Watching the boy read so diligently, she can't help but feel a flicker of admiration for his focus. But she stared too long. Timothy snaps at her to stop gawking and get out. Outside, she finds Carlo and stresses her point. The Duke and Timothy must reconcile for the boy's sake. But Carlo knows this is a monumental task. Just then, the Duke and Tristan arrive. Agnes moves to greet them, seeing her chance to speak with him. But upon seeing Agnes, Tristan's interest is piqued. He insists on an introduction. Tristan finds it unbelievable. In 10 years of visiting the 𝒏𝒂𝒂𝒂 estate, Ethan has never once introduced him to a new member of staff. Faced with the Crown Prince, Agnes freezes, unsure how to proceed. She prepared to greet him, but Tristan smoothly introduced himself first. Soon after, Ethan commands Agnes to his study to discuss the matter. Unsurprisingly, Tristan wanted to join, but Ethan tried to dismiss him. The prince, however, had a swift reply. "What's more important than Timothy?" His words warmed Agnes's heart instantly. This prince was far more decent than a certain cold duke. She then boldly asks the duke to join a lesson to mend his bond with Timothy. He dismisses it as trivial, so she demands he at least pretend to care for the boy's sake. For a mere tutor, she possessed incredible nerve. But Agnes fired back that it was her duty. She was paid to ensure Timothy's well-being. With that, she storms out, fleeing even faster when Tristan called out to her. She reached Timothy's room, red and breathless, and he teased her for being out of shape. She blamed her age and height, which only seemed to insult the young lord. He vowed to grow taller, and her gentle agreement made him wonder, why was she always so kind? He coughed, changing the subject. Had she been speaking to his uncle about him again? Her silence was all the answer he needed. Furious, he told her to stop defending him to the duke. But was that his true wish? If so, she would obey if it truly brought him peace. After a moment, Timothy relented, letting her handle things her own way. The boy despised his uncle. His first memories were of his mother's letters, always praising Ethan. But when they finally met, Ethan showed him nothing but cold indifference. He knew his uncle disliked him, but still craved a little warmth. Agnes promised the sullen boy she would handle it. All he had to do was trust her. Elsewhere, Prince Tristan was thoroughly amused. He'd finally found someone unafraid of the duke. He asked for her name, but Ethan refused to answer. But the prince was persistent. After some prodding, he finally wore the duke down. With a sigh, Ethan revealed her name, claiming he only knew it from her relentless reports on Timothy. Tristan roared with laughter, completely charmed by her spirited nature. Hearing of their first encounter, the prince could hardly breathe from laughing so hard. But a strange feeling coiled in Ethan's gut. Why did Tristan's interest in her irritate him so? The mood soured when Tristan suddenly brought up the late Duchess, Greta, and her passing. He always suspected it wasn't an accident, feigning ignorance to allow Ethan's private investigation. But with no progress, his patience wore thin. Ethan replied coldly that they held a key advantage. Their advantage was Timothy. Tristan wasn't surprised. So that's why she detested the Duke, using his own nephew as a pawn. As Tristan left, he demanded Ethan attend the upcoming royal ball. And just before departing, he added with a smirk that he found Agnes rather cute. As the lesson ended, Agnes reviewed his work. The boy was nothing short of a genius. He absorbed new concepts with ease, and her praise made his little chest puff out with pride. He even boasted the lessons were child's play, forgetting he was, in fact, a child. Agnes asked who his previous tutor was. "My father," he answered, his voice growing quiet. He said his father was weak, just like her, and his mother had always mocked that softness. Agnes gently corrected him. His father wasn't weak, his mother was just exceptionally strong. He abruptly asked when the boring lesson would end, and her heart sank at his words. As playful revenge, Agnes announced there would be homework. He cried out that she was being childish. "Adults can be childish too," she teased. This woman was a complete mystery to Timothy. In the end, he bolted from the room with a laugh, and just like that, the lesson was over. Class dismissed for student number 1. Now, it was time to face her second student. Johann greeted her at the study doors. It seemed the Duke had finally granted her access inside. She called out, but only silence answered. The grand study seemed utterly deserted. Still, a part of her felt relieved. No cold stares, no need to wear a mask. Sighing, she sank onto a large sofa, only for it to shift beneath her. Her heart leaped as the couch revealed a sleeping Duke. He must have worked himself to collapse right here. Her shock turned to concern, and she began to lecture him. But he coldly brushed her words aside. She pressed on, insisting it was for his own well-being. Though Agnes was truly worried, he simply shut her down. As he tried to walk away, she did the unthinkable. She grabbed his arm, forcing him back onto the sofa. Shockingly, he crumbled with no strength to resist. How long had it been since this man had truly slept? He reluctantly admitted the truth. It had been days. She warned he'd work himself into an early grave. He took it as a curse, but she clarified that Timothy needed a healthy guardian. She even hinted that a partner might help ease his burdens. Ethan instantly saw her meaning and cut her off flatly. Marriage was completely out of the question for him. His declaration left her speechless. After all, she hadn't married in her past life either, leaving her with no argument. So she urged him to rest instead, vowing to stand guard herself to ensure his peace. The moment she stepped out, however, she came face to face with the crown prince. She offered a hurried greeting, but he waved it off. It seemed Prince Tristan had slipped away from the palace. She recalled dark rumors from her past life, whispers of a catastrophe following his rise to the throne. But that man had simply faded into silence. Taking a risk, Agnes made a bold request, asking him to return later for the Duke's sake. She confessed that the Duke was exhausted, and she was trying to make him rest. Tristan, intrigued, asked her to walk with him. He questioned her about Timothy, but she remained discreet. So he changed tactics, asking if she was trying to bridge the gap between the Duke and his nephew. The prince acknowledged what a difficult task that must be. She asked him bluntly if he thought her efforts were useless, to which Tristan simply affirmed. His brutal honesty stung, but she held her ground. Timothy had lost his parents. He needed the Duke. But Tristan's counter was swift. The Duke had just lost his own sister. They were both grieving, and the Duke couldn't give the boy what he lacked himself. A man's nature, he argued, doesn't change. Tristan insisted Timothy's stability was paramount, a point on which Agnes couldn't disagree. It's why she'd suggested marriage to the Duke, but he refused. This revelation sparked the prince's interest. He slyly asked if she wanted to be that someone for Ethan. Flustered, Agnes quickly denied it. Then he threw her a curveball, an invitation to be his partner at the ball. His reasoning was simple. If she attended with him, the Duke would have no choice but to appear. Tristan was playing matchmaker. The next day, Timothy was horrified to learn Agnes would be attending with the prince. For a moment, Agnes thought of her former fiancé. She dreamed of this once with him, but now she couldn't even recall his face. It must not have been true love. Brought back to the present, she saw Timothy's sad face. He begged her not to go, but she spoke of the importance of friends. But to Timothy, the word friends meant nothing. He then made an adorable threat, promising to intervene in any way he could if she went. A flicker of worry crossed her mind, but she quickly steered them back to their lesson. Meanwhile, the Duke found himself waiting, wondering where his noisy tutor was. She was certainly loud, he mused, but the silence now felt strangely empty. What a strange woman, so desperate to fix things that weren't her problem. He kept her around purely for his own amusement. He'd even admitted as much to Tristan before. Yes, the Duke had confirmed, Agnes was merely a diversion. Tristan claimed that was a relief, saying he'd hate to fight his friend over a woman. But Tristan's words sparked something in the Duke. The thought of the prince toying with her soured his mood completely. Agnes is thrilled by Tristan's invitation, little knowing she's walking into a cruel game. The thought inexplicably irritates Ethan. Meanwhile, Agnes considers Countess 𝑵𝒂𝒂𝒅's offer for tea. For a moment, her grand plan seems to be falling perfectly into place. But the shadow of her past life's end still haunts her. Shaking it off, she focuses on the future. Shortly after, her coach arrives at the grand 𝑵𝒂𝒂𝒅 estate. She is met with a warm embrace from the 𝑵𝒂𝒂𝒅 children, the young Ben and Celine. But their pleasantries quickly turn sharp, asking why she abandoned them. The brutal honesty of children is relentless. Her explanation is cut short by Lady 𝑵𝒂𝒂𝒅's arrival. Before she can greet her, Celine clings to her, insisting their talk isn't finished. Agnes gently reassures them she could never forget them, and this visit is proof. The children's faces brighten, all forgiven. Lady 𝑵𝒂𝒂𝒅 then ushers Agnes inside. Over tea, the real discussion begins. Agnes proposes a bold plan for Ben and Celine to study alongside the young Marquis, Timothy. She lays her intentions bare, knowing deceit is useless against the sharp-witted Lady 𝑵𝒂𝒂𝒅. Agnes explains that what Timothy needs most are the good influences of real friends. Simply put, Ben and Celine could be his guides. Lady 𝑵𝒂𝒂𝒅, trusting Agnes, agrees to the chaos. Besides, her own children desperately need a new tutor. It's a perfect solution for them all. Her next hurdle is Carlo, who is not convinced. Even with Timothy's recent progress, he is skeptical. He points out that Timothy's improved behavior is reserved for Agnes and Agnes alone. The young lord still ignores all the other servants, a detail Agnes would never see. But Carlo, who oversees all reports, knows the full story. Agnes had forgotten how hard this truly was. If it were easy, his tragic fate would have been different. But his objection only strengthens her case, proving why this study group is essential. Faced with her resolve, Carlo finally relents. But she still needs approval from the Duke himself. A cold knot of dread tightens in her stomach. Operation. Befriend Timothy now faces its greatest obstacle, the Duke's permission. Her mind continues to race. Timothy's world cannot revolve only around her. He's a child who needs true companionship. Her thoughts shatter when she finds Ethan waiting for her. He gets straight to the point, declaring romance is forbidden for all staff. The nerve. How dare he ambush her about her personal life? Frustrated, she blurts out her request for the study group. He grants it, surprisingly. But then he does something completely unexpected. He gently tucks a strand of her hair back, softly warning her not to get hurt. He was worried. Overwhelmed and flustered, Agnes flees, her heart pounding. For days, her mind is in chaos. Why can't she forget his sudden gentleness? It meant nothing. It was just a brief moment, right? The long-awaited day finally dawns at the Duke's residence. The air crackles with a tense energy. For Timothy, this might be his worst day yet. He freezes when he sees them. He immediately demands to know what's happening, his voice laced with betrayal. Agnes tries to explain that learning to interact with others is a vital lesson for a young noble. He, however, is not convinced. His expression slams shut, becoming cold and distant. The poor child's world is so small, with room only for her. But that cannot continue. She is his tutor, not his entire universe. His world needs to be bigger than one person. Agnes refuses to watch him remain lonely. He must learn to open up, unlike a certain cold-hearted uncle. Just as the tension in the room threatens to boil over into a full-blown crisis, the two young visitors step forward, instinctively shielding Agnes from Timothy's furious glare. This act of protection, of course, only fuels his rage. Jealousy flashes in his eyes at their closeness to her. What should have been a calm group lesson quickly becomes a battlefield for Agnes's attention. And our poor tutor is feeling the pressure, caught in the crossfire of their rivalry. Sensing the explosive tension, Selene speaks up, her voice filled with worry. She pleads for Agnes to teach them instead, clearly shaken by Timothy's coldness. And she has a point. Agnes doesn't deserve this, which only fans the flames of their conflict. Then, Timothy makes a shockingly honest admission for a boy his age. He tells Selene he likes his teacher. He said it, he finally called her teacher. But this is no time to celebrate the small victory. The atmosphere shifts entirely as a dark aura settles around Timothy. He declares with icy resolve that the group lessons will begin, to prove who is the better student for his tutor. Oh dear, this is about to get intense. So much for a peaceful study session. How did things escalate so quickly? One moment it was a simple playdate, the next it's a full-blown war of academics. Since things are already out of hand, Agnes decides to go with the chaotic flow, starting an impromptu music lesson. But things are never simple when Selene and Timothy are competing once again. At least there's little Ben's cuteness to distract. Well, to distract Agnes. After a long afternoon, the 𝑵𝒂𝒃 siblings are met by their mother. But that isn't the main event. No, the real shock is the Duke, who came home early just because there was a guest in his manor. What could possibly possess him to appear now, when he never spared a moment for his own nephew before? And isn't this the first time Agnes has seen Ethan since that rather intimate and confusing day? As they head outside, the lady of the 𝑵𝒂𝒃 house pulls Agnes aside for a chat. The conversation quickly turns to the upcoming ball, and the fact that Agnes is going with the prince. Wait a minute, the Duke is attending as well? Before this questioning becomes an interrogation about her love life, they reach the carriage for a quick farewell. Agnes lets out a sigh of pure exhaustion, wondering why everyone is so obsessed with her personal affairs. She doesn't have time for romance, and certainly not with the Duke. But just then, a sudden warmth on her wrist stops her in her tracks. It's him, the very man plaguing her thoughts, asking why she seems so distant and is clearly avoiding him. Busted. As she stammers out a denial, he says he's glad she isn't, all while refusing to let go of her hand. He calmly explains that he doesn't let go when someone tries to run. Was that some kind of confession? My heart can't handle this vague, possessive atmosphere. Was that a veiled threat or something else entirely? The man is a master of terrifyingly ambiguous statements. Mustering her courage, Agnes informs him that she won't need to report as often because of the group lessons. Unless, of course, he finally makes time for that uncle-nephew bonding he keeps putting off. She expects a scoff. Instead, Ethan responds with a cool suggestion, asking for the details. For a brief second, Agnes mistakes his cold tone for actual interest in participating. Her usual fiery demeanor melts away, replaced by an eager hope that he seems to find adorable. And then he does something unthinkable. He gives her a soft pat on the head with the faintest hint of a smile. What was that? The gesture was so out of character, even I am as bewildered as Agnes. Meanwhile, back at his desk, a new problem arises. The targets of their secret investigation might be planning to use Timothy as a puppet. After some gentle prodding from Carlo, the conversation shifts to the topic of horseback riding. What made His Grace suggest such an activity when he's never taken the lead before? Is it just Agnes's influence? Yet Carlo suspects it's something more. Something far deeper than a simple sense of duty. Could it be that their tutor has become someone special to the Duke? The plot definitely thickens. Alone again, Ethan's mind wanders back to the woman who constantly defies him, admitting she is undeniably useful. His thoughts stray into a dangerous place. He finds himself drawn to her, recalling her warmth and her smile, but he shoves the feeling down, refusing to become a man he doesn't recognize. Yes, he's clearly fighting a losing battle against his own heart. With a sudden impulse, he bursts from his office, telling Yoan to ready the horses, one for Timothy too. Yoan, that sly instigator, casually mentions their activity for the day. Ding ding, it's dance practice. The Duke wouldn't care for such things. So why is he now storming in that exact direction? The lesson halts the moment the Duke enters the grand ballroom. Seeing Agnes in her elegant dress, Ethan's heart gives a powerful, undeniable jolt. Is he blushing? Oh, we see you. A memory surfaces of his sister Greta teasing him during his own training. She joked about his harsh nature, wondering who could ever stand him. He shot back that if she found someone, so could he. So the cold Duke possessed a romantic side all along. Greta predicted he'd lose his mind when he fell in love. Ethan scoffed, but she insisted he was too dense to see it coming. The younger Ethan just brushed his sister off as being utterly insane. The memory fades, leaving the present Duke completely lost. He's baffled why that moment just resurfaced now. The answer is simple: your grace. You're falling in love. Meanwhile, Agnes encourages a shy Timothy to greet his uncle. She sees Ethan wasn't ignoring the boy. He's just awkward and only responds if spoken to first. With a push, Timothy offers a quiet hello. Ethan nods in return. A step forward, before he immediately criticizes Timothy's dancing. It's his first lesson. The offended duo glares back. Quite a critique from a man who avoids dancing entirely. Is that projection? Taking it as a dare, Ethan swoops in, his hand claiming Agnes's waist to demonstrate. A jealous Timothy yanks Agnes back, demanding his uncle release her. As they engage in a silent tug-of-war, Agnes senses a fall. She does the only thing she can. She kicks the Duke. The force sends her stumbling. Her skirt rips as she rolls across the floor, leaving both men utterly stunned. Agnes rests after her fall, while Timothy and Ethan hover with concern. They both plead with her to stay and fully recover. She accepts their worry, but reminds Timothy his training can go on. He refuses, avoiding time with his uncle. Ethan seems just as eager to escape, turning to leave. But Agnes stops him, asking about their riding lesson. Ethan replies with an icy tone and walks away. Timothy sees the pout behind his uncle's cold facade. Since Agnes seems unaware, he stays silent. The tension is obvious only to him. Agnes, baffled by them both, can't decipher their odd behavior. In the following days, Timothy starts to shift. The loud, reckless boy grows calmer, almost more mature. Agnes swells with pride at his progress, until his violin screeches, shattering the melody in her eardrums. Yet she masks her pain, praising them both to keep their spirits up. Who is this child? And where is the Timothy who never gives up without a fight? Agnes steps out to grab more lesson materials. She notes again how quiet and subdued Timothy has become. The moment she's gone, Celine and Ben confront him. Celine snatches his book, questioning his strange mood. Timothy answers calmly, saying he isn't worried about the other children vying for Agnes's attention. What truly bothers him are the adults, his uncle and the crown prince. Elsewhere, Tristan pays Ethan a visit. He mocks the noise from upstairs, feigning admiration for the children's talent. Ethan's sulking says it all. Tristan instantly knows something is off and begins his teasing. He even suggests Agnes might have rejected the Duke. Ethan's rigid posture confirms his suspicion. Tristan is loving this. His only concern is that the tutor has stopped bothering him. His pouting expression gives him away. Tristan reads the situation perfectly and offers a solution. Ethan should simply use his power as her employer. Ethan quietly mulls it over. Their exchange continues until Ethan threatens to report Tristan to the king. Tristan fires back with a grin, blaming Ethan for his own growing mountain of work. He leaves with a playful jab, saying he only came for Agnes, leaving the Duke frozen by his words. Soon, the crown prince intercepts Agnes, inviting her to dinner. She declines politely, mentioning her duties with the children. The very same children who are currently failing to hide behind a nearby pillar, eavesdropping on the whole thing. Their clumsy spying brings a wide grin to the prince's face. Leveling up his teasing, Tristan escorts her back to class, filling the air with charming chatter about the ball. But his royal senses are picking up another presence. And it's not just the trio of tiny, bumbling spies. It's the Duke. Yet, as Agnes meets the prince's gaze, she feels something is off. In her past life, their paths never crossed. So why do his red eyes seem to hold a deep, unspoken longing? It's an enigma hidden behind a royal smile. They part ways, their farewell holding a silent vow. A promise that might just save his life from a dark future. The day ends as usual, yet a strange cloud of gloom descends upon the 𝑵𝒂𝒃𝒍𝒆 siblings. Confused by their mood, Agnes is shocked when Selena and Ben demand a secret meeting with Timothy. A secret that doesn't include her, but Agnes is just relieved to see the children are finally starting to bond. Her pleasant thought is shattered by the distinct feeling of being watched. She looks up, her eyes meeting Ethan's gaze from his office window. She gives him a frosty look, a silent punishment for his harsh words. Meanwhile, the three children have forged an unbreakable alliance. They've reached a grave conclusion. They must combine their forces to stop any adult from stealing their precious teacher. Operation Three Musketeers is officially underway. Let the teacher protection games commence. Agnes's sudden cold shoulder leaves Ethan completely bewildered. So much so that he's entirely distracted, replaying their every last interaction. His mind is so clouded that he absent-mindedly accepts a dance invitation from Lady Dahlia for the royal ball. Tristan finds his friend's flustered state incredibly amusing, savoring this new side of the usually stoic Duke. At the same time, Carlo notes the Duke's new habit of leaving work early, right as Timothy's lessons conclude. But Ethan is focused on a different problem. Agnes has been reporting to the old butler, actively avoiding him. When he hears the royal family and Carlo both sent her gowns for the ball, his mind is made up. He'll deliver his own gift to her personally. He finds Agnes waiting, a rare and curious sight. Alone, they speak of Timothy. Agnes carefully brings up Greta's death, worried that riding might re-traumatize the boy. Ethan disagrees, stating Timothy is brave like his mother. But the Duke's thoughts keep returning to one person. Why has Agnes completely occupied his mind? Sifting through his memories, a realization slowly dawns on him. He presents her with a dress for the ball, not the one from the royals, but one he chose himself. At the 𝑵𝒂𝒃 estate, Timothy is with the siblings, but he's troubled by a nagging insecurity. Seeing their strong bond, he asks the question plaguing his mind. Do they even need a teacher when they have each other? His fear of being unworthy of love lingers like a quiet ache inside his heart. Celine explains that they love Agnes simply because their mother taught them to always cherish the best. It just so happens they now must share the best teacher with Timothy. For now, they declare a temporary ceasefire. Their real opponent is the Crown Prince. They must attend the ball and prevent any romance from blossoming. However, their grand scheme comes to a sudden stop when Lady 𝑵𝒂𝒃 overhears their entire plan. That's what happens when you plot loudly on a staircase, little ones. Hearing their pleas and deciding supervised chaos is better than unsupervised chaos, the lady surprisingly relents. She agrees to bring them to the ball. On that fateful day, a team of servants descends upon Agnes. They fit her gown, style her hair, and perform the entire ritual of pre-ball preparation. But all Agnes feels is completely overwhelmed. With the final touch in place, she already wishes the night was over. As she steps out, she finds the Duke waiting for her. He looks impossibly dashing in his formal attire. Her confusion deepens as he offers his arm to escort her personally. And did I forget to mention? Their outfits were a perfect color-coordinated match. This is how it begins. A pre-romance story in the making. Seeing her nerves, Ethan breaks his silence, a steadying anchor in her storm. As Agnes starts her spiral of self-doubt, he cuts through the noise with a stunning compliment. He even dares to call her beautiful, twice. The Duke is truly unpredictable tonight. Inside the carriage, Agnes's composure shatters. Her mind is a tempest. His simple words send her thoughts reeling into chaos. She's so lost in the storm he created that he himself has to pull her back to reality. And then, he does the unthinkable. His hand gently rests on her lips. His thumb brushes across them, as if wiping away some unseen dust. What was that gesture? Stunned, she confronts him for the sudden touch, and he offers a sincere apology. The cold Duke actually apologized. This only deepens her shock. His perfect logic is cracking. At the castle, Tristan and Dahlia greet their arrival. Agnes can't contain her excitement to see the aloof Duke finally dance. After the initial greetings, Ethan seems strangely unwilling to leave her with the prince, even calling her a cherished member of his household. She's merely his employee, but we'll let that slide. Your Grace. Alone, Tristan questions why she isn't in the dress he chose. Unaware of the switch, Agnes is utterly baffled. Then, the horrifying truth dawns on her. Her gown is a perfect match for the Duke's own attire. This was a scandal he orchestrated so casually. The prince, however, seems to enjoy the drama, asking if she harbors feelings for Ethan. She denies it again and again. A classic tale we've all seen before. He apologizes for his neglect, but she reminds him of her duty as a tutor, a truth they both accept. As the ball commences, Agnes is enchanted. It's been so long since she attended a ball, a faint echo of a dance with her first love. And as if summoned by fate, a familiar voice calls out her name. It's Bran, her former fiancé. And that's our cliffhanger for today. What are your theories? As always, hit that like button and comment below if you need the next part. Remember to subscribe and ring the bell for more. We'll see you in the next chapter.